Wait, remember Chaotic? It was this cool fusion of fantasy, sci-fi action all tied into a collectible card game. Yeah, stop me when you've heard that one before. Being produced by 4Kids Entertainment, Chaotic was made out of the want to tie in a show with a card game. This time with the card game being established already. Chaotic Now or Never, a Danish in origin card game. But we gotta give the show a plot, some characters, and a distinct look to stand out from the rest at the time. From Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh to Digimon, I was a card collecting beast. Was then, am now. So to be around during the early 2000s where it seemed almost every show tried having a collectible or trading card game that would either loosely be attached to a TV show or be in relation to it was a true sight to behold. While some worked, some failed, and some were underrated and sadly lost to time. But where does Chaotic place? I feel like people remember this series, but at the same time I feel like there are so many out there that don't even know what I'm talking about. So today, let's take a look at Chaotic. And if you enjoy the video, you better subscribe.
I don't know, and I didn't want to keep asking.
Welcome back to the 25 Days of Fringe-Miss, where there's going to be brand new videos every single day from December 1st to December 25th. Hop aboard. The Danish. They've given the world some great things. Salty licorice, Lego, and of course, Chaotic. Kind of. Starting off originally in 2000 as a game called Gruels and Gorks, it would quickly be remolded into a different game in 2001, one called Chaotic Now or Never, which is the thing that caught the attention from Brian Gannon, who from 2002 to 2003 was the Vice President of Global Business Development for Upper Deck, specifically for anything Yu-Gi-Oh related. With his connections and knowledge of the business world of syndication, licensing, and I guess trading cards now, he would serve as president and CEO for TC Digital Games, a subsidiary of 4Kids Entertainment from 2003 until 2014. The whole goal, aside from Americanizing so much anime, was to get something of their own, by going and acquiring Chaotic Now or Never. And by signing a deal to do so, Chaotic Now or Never was completely cancelled and not a purchasable product anymore. This signed contract resulted in the efforts to bring Chaotic to the US, but the challenge was to format the existing base game into something much more marketable, changing up the terminology, the names of the creatures, and the overall look of the card game as well. Clearly, they weren't just buying the card game to sell a card game, they wanted to be like the other big shots on the block. Every successful card game basically had a TV show, so obviously, making a show secondary, but not in a lazy way by any sense of the imagination. Using a lot of the original lore behind the game, they took pieces and parts from what was there and made similar enough but more unique story ideas and plot points that would have the card game and show work in unison. From all of this, in 2006, the show would premiere through 4Kids alongside the revamped card game coming a year later in 2007 being put on store shelves.
We get the idea, Peyton. Good luck.
Coming up next, Chaotic on Shin.
Now, our main character in the show itself is Tom, voiced by Jason Griffith. Tom's your average teenage dude who enjoys the card game Chaotic, along with his best friend Kazdan, voiced by Darren Dunstan. Now, playing the game is cool and all, but what about being actually in the game? Well, that's something that Tom doesn't believe is possible, no matter how many times Kaz tells him about this mysterious secret code that will allow them to do so. But of course, the super secret password gets sent to Tom, and of course, he enters it. Nothing is going to happen though. Is what this dude really thought, because his scanner device transports him to the world of Chaotic, where the monsters on the cards are real, and you can take pictures of them or scan them and also become them. Yeah, it's pretty rad. There are two separate areas within this world. The Battledrome, where you get to become the creatures and battle opponents, and then there is Param, the actual land of the creatures in Chaotic, in which you can go scan into your device, which looks like it functions as a version of Pokemon Snap. The creatures of the land are split between 4, but secretly 5, different tribes that all have their own unique designs, abilities, etc. in relation to their tribe. Each tribe has a leader, with Maxor being the leader of the Overworld tribe, serving as the face of the show basically in our vessel into the creature relations between tribes. With a war going on over the power known as Kathaka, and while you may root for one tribe over the other, there is no real good side or bad side. Each tribe sees themselves as the good side, and through the storytelling you don't see them as either good or bad, but maybe a mix of both. Something that was particularly unique to Chaotic was that the gameplay adjacent aspect of the show was pretty well thought out in actually teaching the viewer the real, or as close as you can get, techniques and concepts of how to play the accompanying card game. A lot of other shows stretched and bent the rules in favor of story plot or more definitive action, but Chaotic didn't sacrifice either. Instead, it embraced the rules into the world of the show while still adding in the features unique to the show, like going to the world and becoming the creatures. The first season of the show looks different from the following 2 seasons of the show, with the first being done in Flash. Seasons 2 and 3 would look more like your typical anime aesthetic to fall in line with the other shows it was similar to. This was a major point of contention between fans, going back and forth from those who like the new look and those who prefer the original. The supporting cast of other human characters do a fine job on getting their time to be important to the story, or at least play a role that doesn't stray the path too much or ever become an annoyance. Peyton, voiced by Mark Thompson, is the definition of that one dude who is the most into the card game. Like, it's their personality. Sure, he has a great knowledge of Chaotic, but man, can we talk about something else sometimes? Like, have you seen the 2017 masterpiece of a film, Blade Runner 2049? Sarah, voiced by Rebecca Solar, the smart but ain't taking your crap type, she's headstrong and will go to great lengths to scan the creatures of Param. Then there's Christella and Claiborne, voiced by Meredith Zeitlin and Gary Mack, the pranksters and main human antagonists of the show. They are your standard bad guy type. They aren't nice, and I don't like them. There was a video game for Chaotic that came out in 2009. Maybe we take a look at that soon over on my Jordan Fringe Gaming channel. Now let's talk about the card aspect of things. Like I mentioned, the show is very accurate in teaching you, the viewer, how to play the game through the guise of some really fun and creative action. The physical cards themselves were really cool looking. They stood out apart from Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, but there was an aspect about them that made them feel, well, less collectible and more of a way to get you from the physical cards to the online game. Each card would have this code on the bottom of the front of the card that you could input online for the online game. But on the back is where it feels tacky. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. There you'd find a nice logo for the series, but at the bottom you see an advertisement for the card game website, which, thinking about the digital age and the rise of so many card game players using online versions of the game and or using code cards like for Pokemon and inputting them into the game, it seems that Chaotic was trying to be ahead of the curve, as this would continue to be a growing format, but it weirdly felt like I was being marketed to something else than rather having fun collecting the cards. Regardless of that, the card game had 5 different types of cards: creature, attack, music, battle gear, and location. Creature cards are the main cards you play as, and they were all even more unique by having a randomly generated set of stats. Yeah, you and I could have the same cards, but these sets of stats right here would be completely different. A pretty cool concept for the game in general, but an annoying one for collector completionists out there. Good luck with that one. Each creature would be from one of 5 different tribes: Overworlders, Underworlders, Mapidians, Danians, and Moralians. Each tribe having a distinct look to their tribes, like the Moralians looking like slime-based alien creatures. I like them. Battle gear is your attachments to your character, like weapons and equipment. Music is musical magic, essentially, the spells with special effects that you could use one time. The attack cards allow your creature to complete some form of command. And of course, location cards are area-based, changing the environment to either help your creature or put your opponents at a disadvantage. It wasn't too hard to pick up and understand while not trying to be exactly like any other popular card game at the time. Plus, the creature designs are what stood out the most, being the single thing I remember the most about Chaotic. I know we are specifically talking about the show in this video, but since the card game is baked into the DNA of Chaotic on every end, I figured it would only be right for me to hit the surface level stuff on terms of understanding the base elements of how the card game works. Plus, I like card games, and how often do I get a chance to speak about them in a YouTube video?
Like a musical munchie to keep the Kathaka cool. Chaotic Marillion Invasion will return right after this. Now back to Chaotic Marillion Invasion.
The show itself would come to an end in early 2010 after 3 full seasons. Several months after that, the website updated one final time and the upcoming card expansion was delayed indefinitely. It seems that this was the sad end of the show, and the property in general. That's it. But what was really going on was a bunch of privately handled lawsuits regarding the rights to the property of Chaotic between TC Digital and 4Kids Entertainment. Funny enough, 2 years later in 2012, Chaotic went on to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the card game specifically, even when behind the scenes mommy and daddy were fighting. But if we fast forward 2 more years to 2014, 4Kids Entertainment filed for bankruptcy, but came back together now under the name 4 Licensing, which 3 years later in 2017 would also file for bankruptcy. Why is that important? Well, that means that the big legal back and forth battle that's been happening effectively has ended, and the rights default to the company left standing, TC Digital. But things went silent. The battle was won, but now it's been 7 years since the show ended, and the card game really hasn't done anything since then either. However, Chaotic may not be dead after all. In fact, in 2019, Brian Gannon stated in an interview that he does want to revive the series. He has plans to revive the series. It wouldn't be a reboot, rather a revival, and would pick up where things left off at the end of the 3rd season. Along with that would mean the revival of the whole IP in general, so I'd expect that to mean the card game too. The last couple of years it was briefly mentioned, and more hints to it officially becoming a thing were floated around, thanks to Brian's light teasing of it. Our final bit of information regarding the revival was in March of 2021, 11 years since the ending of the show, where Brian stated that the revival is still in the works. As of making this video, nothing further has been announced, but I guess we will see what the future holds. However, there's one more thing.
One more thing!
In June of 2022, a YouTube channel called Codemaster Hard Rock was able to meet up and speak with Brian Gannon, and was able to get some more information for this revival, confirming some frequently asked questions by the fandom. For example, legacy cards will be able to be playable and reprints will be happening. The first card set to release was the one that was indefinitely delayed, titled Fire and Stone, and that they are looking at the 11-minute runtime for episodes rather than a full 22 minutes. There will be a mobile version of the card game or some sort of companion app, as well as looking into both the video game market and another PC version of the card game. Oh, and a movie to kickstart the revival may be in the works, with thought going to either a cartoon version or a live-action version. I personally really enjoyed what the show had to offer. I must admit that during its original airing, I wasn't keeping up with the show that often, and not so much the card game either. For me, it sadly always fell behind stuff like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Digimon. Not that I'm trying to compare them all together, but those other 3 were able to go on and continue their fandoms to this day, and have never really lost me as a fan. Maybe I was already juggling enough in this hobby area that another card game / cartoon didn't interest me that much. Whatever it was, it boils down to just younger me not having full interest. In hindsight and fully watching the show, there was definitely something pretty great here. From the storytelling to the action, the show had something special that I could see myself liking back then, and I guess I feel bad for not giving it the time of day a bit more. I do see a future that if or when this show does actually come back, that I will give it more attention. But as for the cards themselves, while I love the art on them, truly need to do something special with them to pull my interest there as well. If it's all encompassed together, all aspects need to be given the same amount of love. The cards need to ditch that website link on the back, yuck, get it out of here, and maybe a bit thicker of cardstock and boom, I'm in. But what about you? Were you a fan of Chaotic, and if so, would you be on board for a revival of the series and card game? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, like and subscribe. Later.